One is called the USS Halfini, and the other is called the USS Nakamoto.
Halfini.
So it's full of references. It's basically a love letter to this whole community. It's kind of a chicken and egg problem. We don't have the adoption yet that this makes sense. I think we're at 3%, 4%. He did something like that. And you know what happens in every bear market. This scheme quickly falls apart. Infinite robins in infinite universes. Every other animal is just happy with the basic needs being met, essentially. But humans are never happy.
Is that also true with rats?
Let's say Bitcoin becomes our money. We have no fiat money anymore. If a single entity has the keys to half the money in the world, you have again something like a fiat system. You have again a Cantillon effect. The central authority again is responsible for distributing the money.
Hi Ratoshi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for inviting me to your awesome podcast. Yeah, I've come here today to shamelessly promote my work. And I've written a book, Ratification, the Second Bailout. And yeah, I'm here to talk about it.
That's awesome. And the first time we spoke, you were still anonymous. So like we had the Ratoshi in there. So now for the first time on this channel, also with picture. And yeah. I think the one major takeaway, and the people that also remembered, and it was a big discussion point also in the comments, was like, you will be able to buy a spaceship with one Bitcoin, or was it one Satoshi? I don't remember, but it was something like that.
Depends when you want to fly to the moon and beyond, really. Yeah, I started before even the book project really took off, and I was seriously starting to actually write a book and not, you know, some blog posts and some shit posts and stuff like that. I created this crazy price model for Bitcoin, which I explained in your first podcast, where the assumption is that the purchasing power will double every year. Because also the energy you put into the network will double every year. And that's how we will end up at this crazy price prediction at $1 trillion per Satoshi by 2078.
Oh gosh, it's just crazy. And there's also this, it kind of shows the power of exponential growth.
Exactly.
And it's hard for people to really like grasp how we can get there. Because like the one Satoshi is like 100 million Satoshis is one Bitcoin, and one Bitcoin right now is just like 100K. And
in the book, it plays a few centuries after today. The unit of account is nanos, which is nano Satoshis. So they're living in the future, in a hyper Bitcoinized future. And so the premise of the book is humanity is gone. They have disappeared. And genetically engineered rats have inherited the human society and technology and, of course, also their infrastructure. And yeah, that's the base setup, and the book explores this through two timelines: the origin story of this whole setup and the present day, where the characters are waiting for the second bailout, because they're living in a society that's very divided. Like they have a lot of technology, but not everyone has equal freedom. And many rats in the book live in hopes, and it's almost a religious hope, that the second bailout will return. And will, you know, bring them wealth and power and an equal voice.
I love that. And for a few people that maybe haven't seen the first episode and also unaware of the Ratoshi brand and yourself, maybe give us some brief overview of like who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin and how you got there.
Yeah. So the backstory to how I ended up with writing a science fiction book is I started when these early AI generators took off, you know, where the characters still had 15 fingers. You remember that for sure. When you generated pictures using AI, the characters had like 15 fingers and stuff like that. And I just played around with it because I liked the technology. And I somehow ended up generating pictures of rats in space habitats. And it developed this spirit and this narrative on its own, right? I started writing short stories. I posted them on Instagram initially, just about rats living in a space station. Like that was how I started out, and there was no backstory. There was no Bitcoin parallels. There was just this blank canvas, more or less, of just, you know, a rat waking up in a space station and trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And from there, I kind of wanted to develop this whole universe because it spoke to me. And I had to research, okay, what legal system would the rats use? What money would they use? And I tried to develop that from some first principles thinking. Not like, okay, invent something, but really do the research and figure out, okay, what is reasonable for a highly technologized society that inherited the human technology, what would make sense in that universe. And in terms of money, it started to make sense that they run on a time chain. And once I had that puzzle piece, you know, it just started to click together. And the more I researched into all the topics, the more it made sense. And so where I started out, this whole thing was, okay, they had their economy running on the time chain. They have, of course, energy production means to mine the time chain. So they had to have a Dyson swarm, like solar panels in space, producing more energy than they would probably need. And what are the consequences of that setup? How would they organize space travel using the time chain? Like you have this whole problem. You have multiple spacecraft. You want to organize them somehow so they don't collide. They have their trajectories. You need to plan them. How do you plan this in a decentralized way? I started to develop more and more of these concepts, which are in the book, which are also explained how they work, how it all fits together. So that's how this slowly came together.
I love it because this is what I usually do when I try to get people to asking the question of like why we need Bitcoin is, first of all, like, if we don't have any money, how would you design money? Like, how would you, we have a problem that we produce something for someone else and we might not need the thing that he gives us directly. So we need money in for this exchange. And how should that money be designed so we can store it for ourselves for the future, and we can also give it someone else for something else? And if you think from first principles, and I actually did that, I don't know if we talked, probably didn't talk about that last time, but I did that small experiment here in Austria with a group of like 15, 20 people. And we wanted to take 1 hour, but we took about 5 hours. And we discussed what are the properties of the money that we want to even have. So, and then people just came up with things like, oh yeah, like if we design money from scratch, like it should gain value over time. Mm-hmm. Like people naturally came up with that. People said like, oh, it should be accepted everywhere. So like we basically came to the properties of money with just like asking people like, oh, don't imagine anything. Just think about what would you, like if you would be God, how would you design money? And so I like that first principles thinking a lot. And stripping away today's reality and thinking of like, if you could design it, then you end up at Bitcoin. And then we went ahead and like compared to the perfect money, every asset that is currently available. And surprise, surprise, we came out that Bitcoin is actually the closest thing to the perfect money, with some exceptions. And this is an amazing thing for me to think from first principles and strip away today's reality.
And using rats makes this simpler. because you're not tied to to some human-centric biases. You can really more freely think. I mean, you still have your own internal biases, but you don't think more or less in human standards. I'm curious in your introspection into the properties of money. What did you come up in terms of self-sovereignties and confiscatability?
There is this interesting point that came up that only came up because it was an Austrian group, and it only came up because I prompted it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they would have not done it. Like we did it, and I was asking, isn't something missing here? And I asked them, would you like for the perfect money to be easily be taken away from you? But it was Austrian students. They're not used to that. Mm-hmm. Like they have their bank accounts and they have parents, and like it's like they were from age 18 to like, I think the oldest was like 27. And so they never interacted, like nobody ever had a bank account frozen or like an account shut down or like a bank was not working or something like that. So they didn't come up with that, interestingly enough, because they never experienced this problem.
But they for sure had a parking ticket at some time or a fine or something, right?
Yeah.
And this is also one of the themes that I had to develop. Like if the society uses money that you cannot confiscate, what are the ramifications for the legal system of that society? Imagine you cannot go to court and get a court order to fine this person because you cannot take their money away. You can tell them, hey, please please pay this, but it's, they can say no. So how the legal system in ratification works is you have to pre-collateralize everything. So imagine I entered this studio today, and maybe that's a good time to read a chapter. A subtle buzzing alerted Sorkal to stand absolutely still. He knew that meant his collateral was verified, charged, locked, and poised to be irrevocably recorded for eternity on the time chain. Only days ago, he would have never dreamt of to control this much lead ever again. But now, in this place, that close to Earth, against the precipice, it was simply an afterthought, merely a ritual rather than necessity. The automated gun turrets, many suspected but Sorkal knew, were lurking behind laddered walls to deter anyone from approaching the reception without proper lead. Even despite Sorkal's newfound financial confidence, they still asserted their fear-inducing presence in Sorkal's mind as he approached further.
So whatever you do, you go there only, and you have to always put up collateral in case you do something wrong or there's something happening. They can get the Bitcoin, the Satoshis out.
Exactly. Like a Bitcoin loan, but for every exchange you do, you have to pre-collateralize your future activities. And the more fallout that activity could be, right, the more you would have to deposit.
Also, in case like we come into the studio, we put I don't know, a few hundred Satoshis, a few thousand Satoshis in the collateral in case we put water on the microphones.
Yeah, or trash the camera, or basically similar to how an insurance system works. But imagine there's no fail-safe to this. There's there's nothing to fall back to.
It's also interesting when we think about that collateral system for our legal system overall, with things going wrong. So is there in this system still a third party, like a government or like police or like any sort of like security guards?
There is quite a few of that, but it all works in this system, right? So of course people start to build, their second layers on top of that, and maybe spread the risk, or don't have to deposit that much collateral if you like share the risk. But at the end, it all needs this final settlement on some base layer to really function. And yeah, the main character Zorkal, he did something like that, and what happens in every bear market. This scheme quickly falls apart, and yeah, he has to deal with that. But yeah, we will always then find ways to get around it. But the whole base premise, of course, is different, because right now in our system it's all debt-based, and also the legal system is debt-based. You do something, and if it goes wrong, then you're like, "Oops, I'm sorry. Sue me, jail me." It's you deal with the consequences after the fact, and not think about them before you do something.
And it's interesting because you should think about them beforehand. And if we have a system where you always have to think about them, I like the closest thing I can think about is now renting a car. I always have to put down a deposit. I mean, there is some insurances where you don't have to put a deposit down. But here in Austria, there's a company where I always get my cars, and even if I get the highest insurance, I still have to put a security deposit down, which kind of annoyed me. But it does make sense in that way of like, oh yeah, I have to put an insurance down, and then you think more about what you're gonna do about that car when you already put down the money, and you really want that money that actually belongs to you. You want to have it back. Thinking about that thing of doing that always, that's definitely a new thought that I never discussed on the podcast.
Yeah, but it's also a symptom because why do you put down this deposit if you rent a car on your holidays usually? Because there's zero trust.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I explored also here is, if the world moves to this unconfiscatable ledger, we're creating a system of zero trust ultimately in everything we do. And I'm not so sure that this is a superior society. It's just a consequence of that thing, right? Similar to the car rental or a safety deposit. If you rent a flat, you need to have some security deposit, but this is a function of of low trust against you.
I'm not sure if I picked it up from you last time or I heard it maybe on Twitter or something like that, and maybe not from you at all. But I think I've heard you say that if a civilization doesn't adopt Bitcoin, it will fall apart or something like that. Is that where you also go? Of like we kind of have to adopt Bitcoin to actually survive?
I think I said that on Nico Yil's podcast, that a time chain acts as a great filter. That's a scientific term for a civilization that doesn't reach the space age and doesn't colonize more planets. But that's more tied to the whole energy economy. Because the mining needs energy, and we need to produce more energy to keep the time chain secure. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's how it acts as a great filter. If we keep in this fiat system where, our energy production more or less has flatlined since we went on fiat money. If you look at the energy use per capita in the Western world, it's flat since 1971. It went exponential before, and since then it went completely flat. And that way we will stay on Earth forever, because we don't have the energy to colonize space. If we stay on this, I think it's I don't know the exact number right now, how many megawatt hours per year the average person consumes, but it's been flat for half a century.
That's super interesting. I think we've touched on that the last time, but it's interesting to think about that. And I think we also touched on it the last time, that Bitcoin mining will be almost all of the energy that we'll use one day, because we have so much abundant energy so that we, even with just like 1%, we can function normally, and we have abundant system, and everything else just goes to Bitcoin. And we just talked about that actually in yesterday's episode, where we talked about energy generators have to look into Bitcoin, otherwise they will be acquired by Bitcoin miners at some point, because they are already starting slowly, like Bitcoin miners are already starting to actually acquire electricity generators, energy generators. And if you think about that, like just going forward exponentially, like every energy generator will be a Bitcoin miner and give some off to people that also need it.
Yeah, the residential use will be the waste product. Like that was the premise of the 99%, right?
Yeah.
But it makes sense if you think about all the energy sources that exist in the universe. The most efficient energy sources, like solar or wind, you cannot time them. You cannot decide when you want this energy. The energy arrives on their own schedule. Versus the less efficient energy sources like gas, coal, that stuff, fossil fuels. You can decide when you want to generate that energy, but it's very inefficient. So, and if you think that further, the most efficient energy generation we know that exists is solar power in space. Because the solar energy that hits Earth's surface is only at 30% efficiency. So 70% gets lost because the photons have to go through the atmosphere. So if you move that into orbit, you have much more energy. But there it's even farther from your use case, right? So we have now this great AI bubble forming, right? Where we're building data centers and all that stuff. And I've heard people talking about, okay, can't we move the data centers into space? Right? So that conversation is happening. I mean, there's a lot of problems with that. But ultimately, the biggest problem there again is latency, because just the distance, the light lag is increasing, and so then the conversation goes from compute that is time bound, right? Not energy is time bound. It's hard to decide when you want that energy, but also the compute is more or less decoupled from when you want to use it.
Yeah.
And that again is interesting because it binds into the whole proof of work thing, where you compute something and store it in a hash for later. So because you're not really storing the energy, you're just storing the compute. And you can use this. That's also why it's called reusable proof of work in the white paper. You can use this proof of work later to secure something. Right? We use it for money today primarily, but you could use it for other things. In the book, it's for instance used to secure any IT system from cyber attacks. And that ties into the whole software thesis from Jason P. Lowery, where we said, okay, at some point, if the whole world runs on compute and it's no longer humans interacting with humans, but it will be 90% AIs talking to other AIs, we have this huge wall of a problem. I think we're not talking enough about yet. How can we secure ourselves against another AI hacking our AI? Because the AI has at some point superior programming skills, superior hacking skills. They can flood any system with thousands of requests, and even if you use the measures we have today, we have these captures, we have Face ID, all that stuff. But AI can even today fake it already.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. You could the captures and stuff like that. Even Face ID, you can fake.
Exactly. But what can you not fake?
Bitcoin.
Exactly. You cannot fake this proof of work. So we will also have this collateralized system in it. I think it will start at IT systems before it moves into the broader legal system. That, let's say you want to interact with some service, and it's a public service, so it has to be open and trustless. You will have to deposit some collateral to even send your requests. Right? You want to log in. Simple case. You want to log into a website. If you ever mistyped your password, the first time it will say password is wrong. The second time you get it wrong, you will get this captcha usually, because that's already this deterrence against you trying this 5 million times. So they throttle your request. But with AI, this throttle doesn't work anymore, because they just solve the captcha or do the Face ID or whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. They can flood the server with millions of requests from all IPs all over the world. So if you're some service provider, how do you safeguard against that? And one solution to that is this reusable proof of work.
I think it's actually I thought about that. Apple on the iPhone does it with time, which is interesting because time is like the closest thing to Bitcoin, I guess, with the time chain. But you first have, I think, 3 guesses, and then you have to wait a minute. If you then again type it for like 1 or 2 times wrong, you have to wait then 5 minutes, and it like increases the time that you can actually try it out. But I think as you said, like the most. But how would that then work in Bitcoin? Like if you like go in and log in and you like secure something with Bitcoin, so you have to actually post like Satoshis or something that you like. Oh, like I sign like a transaction of like 1 Satoshi, and like then I get in or something like that.
Let's imagine a way this could work. you want to sign into a service, or you want to open an account with a service, and then this whole time locking doesn't even work, because you can always sign on with a new IP, with a new, new name, whatever. So you would send them a few sats over probably Lightning or some network, and deposit that as collateral. And then you can make your request, right? You can, and if the other party decides that this was an honest request, you didn't flood it with spam or with, wrong passwords or something. So at some point you do an honest, you behave honestly, then you would get the sets back.
That's a nice idea. I like that, because it brings the proof of work into an actual system. And like in IT, I come from IT security. I'm not an expert in it by any means, but there's so many basic problems that would have been already solved with exactly that system. Like all those attacks that come to the server, a lot of those attacks come with something like that, and you just like post a Satoshi and you get it back.
Yeah. And you can even implement it as a third-party system, as some sort of firewall, and just secure any IT system. I mean, you because you also have an IT background like me. We have this also whole issue with software that has issues. Like we have these overly complex software systems where it's not just this vendor writes this software, but they use software from all kinds of different vendors. We have supply chain attacks. I wouldn't say every day, but it happens a lot, and you have to run after these problems all the time. And with a system like that, you could say, okay, this is, I stand my ground here. Please, hackers, feel free to hack me, but it comes at a cost, and you can at any time, scale this cost higher, lower, depending on the risk again.
Hasn't even Seyr brought that up once when he talked about Twitter and the bots? I think there was some discussion, not lately, but like I think 2 years ago or something like that. I remember where he said like we should verify people with Bitcoin, and there should be some.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I think that the problem why we don't have this right now is kind of a chicken and egg problem. We don't have the adoption yet that this makes sense. I think we're at 3%, 4%.
I believe more like 0.1%, but yeah.
Yeah, but at least people who have some software, some wallet, who could do it.
Yeah.
Maybe they have I don't know, some trading account for their stocks, so they could theoretically, they already have access. So it would be easy for any bank or broker to offer this as a service, right? So collateral as a service, and then IT systems could plug into that. So I think from a UX and technology perspective, we have everything we need for that. I think we didn't have a defining hack yet, right? Where this whole we run after the problems and nothing happens. We didn't have that hack yet.
For real change, the pain has to be.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be high enough. So also this whole we can solve this problem with our own proprietary technology much easier. And I mean, it's true, right? If you control the whole software stack, of course you can fix your own problems, but you're just delaying the inevitable. At some point, what will you do? If or like at some point AI cracks fundamentally something like a captcha or something, then this whole thing is done. You can just delete the software. It doesn't work anymore. You cannot patch it. You know what I mean? You cannot develop a better captcha if AI just solves captcha done and reads all captchas.
I'm often surprised that it cannot already. I'm first of all like really impressed by the speed of how quick they get better in doing a lot of work. Like 2 years ago, I didn't use it at all. Now I couldn't live without it. I literally had the moment, I think it was 3 or 4 months ago, some time ago already, where I didn't had ChatGPT for I think 2 hours. It fell out for 2 hours, and like I just stopped working. I was like, oh, let's do lunch now, because it's so integrated in everything I do. I mean, there's a whole nother discussion where I have a little bit of fear that using so much AI can seriously impact our brains.
Yeah, it already does and already did. What's interesting is also how it influences how people talk, how people write. I'm sure if you put the book into an AI flagger, it will flag it. Not because it's written by AI, but I also use it so much that it influences how I think, how I write. Right? It changes. It introduces you to new vocabulary that you're not exposed to in normal conversations. And also introduces you to new concepts and stuff. So it's like you have a new friend almost that is hyper intelligent but very autistic, and that's like now your new buddy, and of course he rubs off on you, right? So I think that's what you experience, what I experience. That
you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend most of your time with.
Yeah, and now the number 1 person is a chatbot,
which is just kind of hilarious. If you tell this anyone in 2020, he will say like it's crazy. It will never happen that quick, and we're in 2025, and like it went so quick, and now like people literally talk their worst nightmares and psychology, depression problems with a chatbot, and people 5 years ago would have laughed you out of the room, and it's just 5 years. It's not a long time.
Are you a science fiction lover at all?
A little bit, but not as much. But I'm a little bit of science fiction lover. Because
in science fiction, and even the popular science fiction like Star Trek, they nailed how this whole chatbot thing went, right?
I've never watched Star Trek,
but like especially in the Next Generation, they in natural language talk to the computer. Hey, computer, do this, do that. And of course the computer responds, and it's eerily similar. Like I rewatched the whole Star Trek thing a few years, I think in 2022 or something, when already we had the chatbots, and it was just eerily on point how they 30 years ago portrayed how we will interact with artificial intelligence and use it in our daily lives. Like you always have this computer that listens. Of course, it was for dramatic effect always a voice interface, because it's hard to do in a TV show, typing stuff. But the whole concept of how it's integrated.
I already talk a lot like that.
You do?
Yeah, I do a lot.
Okay.
Especially like if my first touch point is usually voice, and if I want to go deeper, then I start typing, because then I want to paste things and like want to get things like in there. But if I have something new, a problem or a question, even cooking tutorials, I love cooking with ChatGPT. If you've never tried that, it's really good, and it always tastes amazing. Like it's really fascinating. But I wanted to say, I think the closest thing I watched to AI voice bots is probably Iron Man. I also watched Knight Rider, where he has the kid.
Oh yeah, Knight Rider is also a perfect example of that. I love
Knight Rider.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But they also nailed it, right?
Yeah.
They also nailed the AI perfectly. Also in the in the problems it has, like its weaknesses, they nailed it. It takes you too literally. Sometimes if it's stuck in a problem, it loops, like all that stuff. They predicted it pretty well, and I think that's what sci-fi does. We deconstruct reality from first principles and try to figure out, okay, how could the world look like in X generations, and how then will this impact the people living in that society, right? That's always the overarching framework the sci-fi lives in. We create the world, and then we put people inside and see, okay, how do they deal with the new problems? The technology solved so many problems, but what are the new problems? That's at least how I understand always sci-fi works.
Which is kind of painting reality, but just in the future, just being a little bit too early with predictions, or being just like, okay, how is the future looking like in today's world?
Yeah, but it's not a prediction. It's always just a game theoretical exercise.
Yeah,
because the sci-fi also is wrong on more things than it is right on. But there's always this small thing that is correct.
Interesting.
And maybe something I wrote in the Ratification turns out to be correct. I think it will be the genetically engineered rats, of course. Not this time chain bullshit, but
I just wanted to ask you, will I be a rat?
Maybe. There's a lot going on with this whole gene splicing and gene therapy. I think this will be the next great thing after blockchain and AI. I think some biotechnology might be the next big thing, but who knows?
Yeah, medicine is an interesting one. Probably most popular on that is Brian Johnson, with the idea that we might not just die. And this is interesting because if you say, okay, we advance, maybe we can keep the body alive for longer than we have life expectancy. Like we just can live on and on and on because medicine is so good, and we can just make a new heart. We can 3D print a new heart, or we just put our software on a robot or whatever.
Or we train AI on your 6,000 podcast episodes. And at any point in the future, a rat civilization can just bring you back to life. And is this then the real Robin? You know what I mean?
It's actually a small reason why I do the podcast. Is imagine I could watch 1,000 podcast episodes of my great grandfather, how he lived through 1870 or whatever. That would be so cool. And so this is a small kind of motivation that's in the back of my mind. If I produce this format that will hopefully also be future-proof, that people can always listen and watch it too, maybe someone down the line, in thousands and thousands of years, in hundreds of thousands of years, someone is like, oh, let's watch what this guy did in 2025.
Yeah, and put it all together with AI into a VR. And then it's a simulated Robin, and he talks like you, he behaves like you, he thinks like you, because you put 100% of your brain into these things at some point. At some point, maybe there is a cutoff. And then the question is, maybe this is really you.
It is you, me.
I mean, from an outside perspective, if you cannot distinguish the two, then it is the same.
And then I could finally make more podcast episodes, because then there can just be like 7 Robins that can do like 7 episodes.
Infinite Robins in infinite universes.
I love that. And maybe there is in a few tens of thousands of years a rat watching this that is kind of my great son.
Okay, that needs to go into part 2 of the book.
I would love that. That's really cool, man. I haven't even come to my second thought with you. We already had like 1 hour. Let's get back to where we are currently with Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And you said something in the very beginning where you talked about we will double every year because of the energy, because we will how did you say, consume every year with Bitcoin 50% or like 100% more energy. So like we double every year. That's why also the price will like around about double every year.
Just look at the hash rate. The hash rate shows the truth, right? The price is just noise. The hash rate is what actually happens. And in the hash rate is unbroken. It's a pure exponential. It doesn't even grow in a power law like the price does. The price develops in a power law, but the hash rate, if you look at it, is exponential. So far, this model has not been broken. It might appear as broken. It will be interesting if we increase the efficiency of the mining process, because then the hash rate can still double every year, but the energy consumption won't.
Oh, yeah. Right?
But the hash rate, at least in my thinking, it's just an observation that it doubles, right? It's not a theory, it's an observation so far. It doubled every year. My theory why this is happening, because it's this software already playing out, that some participant in the network or new participant in the network try to get this 50% share of the hash rate. Like it's a constant battle of somehow trying to getting this majority, and this has been happening for the past. It's been 16 years, right?
Yeah. And it's super interesting because last halving, I also just talked about that yesterday with my guest on Bitcoin mining. We talked about the last halving where I think the price went down and the halving went down, but the hash rate actually did not went down. So the difficulty adjustment did not adjust. So it was like a hard profit cut for a lot of miners.
Yeah, sure. But this again forces inefficient miners out of the game, and also drives this whole search for new stranded energy. Because if suddenly your reward from that whole equation is halved, you need to look for new energy sources that are cheaper, stuff like that. You need to find more efficient miners. You need to find other revenue streams like network fees or whatever. There will always be some new narrative to like ordinals or something where miners can get additional revenue.
I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC-free Bitcoin. That's why I use simplemining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation.
And so then the price just naturally follows at some point, even though it might not be perfect, but it follows at some point the hash rate.
Yeah, because the price is not just influenced by the hash rate and by the miners, but also this whole macroeconomic factors. Money printing, money burning, tax changes, if there's a recession, I'm sure the price will go down. But zoomed out, the hash rate will go up.
It's super interesting when we think about the whole development with Bitcoin. It's been only 16 years, as we just discussed. It's been not a long time, and we already are at such a developed stage where we have so many individuals in Bitcoin. We have now companies in Bitcoin. We not only have companies, but we even have publicly traded companies, which have a harder time to get into Bitcoin than just like a regular company does, especially like smaller ones. And now even nation states are talking about it and adopting it or having it at least and talking about it. And this is just like 16 years and just someone posted that idea and people actually like followed it and like, oh, and now this thing is here. It always amazes me how magical this moment was, and especially magical it is for me when we just talk about what's kind of possible with Ratoshi also, and then with Future of Bitcoin. Then it's like, oh yeah, we started from that. All the people always said it will not work. It will have something bad. It will break at some point, and it will still here. And we're stronger than ever, and it's like it just keeps on going.
But you know what gives me confidence? That this is not a unique thing. This is not unique to Bitcoin. In time and also in the sentiment, like this will never work. That has been the story of every technology we use today. People said electricity will kill us all. They said, if you go into this steam locomotive, you will die because the human body cannot endure speed over 30 kilometers an hour. The New York Times proclaimed powered flight will never be possible 1 year before the Wright brothers proved them wrong. All these old articles about the internet from the early 2000s, the internet will never...
It's just a fad.
It's just a fad, exactly. So at least the memes check out. the Bitcoin chain could still fail because of many reasons, or even worse, it could be fall into hands we don't want them to control it, right? We also need to be vigilant to make sure it doesn't get centralized. So it's not a free ride. That's what I want to say. It's certainly a lot of things can go wrong at any point. I don't know if you were during the hash wars, if you were already in the space in like the 2016, 17.
Oh, the block size wars.
Yeah. Like that was a huge danger to the whole thing, and by I think it was 50-50 at this point. The big blockers could have won, and that would have been it. And
I say that also, and it's almost unpopular when you say that. I think we have to keep fighting for Bitcoin. I think we need to stay our stand, and we have to keep on making sure I think Bitcoin will work because I think people will keep fighting for it. I think it's such a great idea that people will keep fighting for it, even though there are many obstacles along the way.
Yeah, and there's also always no consensus what fighting for means. But that's a good thing, right?
That's also very true, yeah.
Like this whole recent knots versus core debate, you're for sure following, and you had for sure many guests with different opinions on that.
Yes.
But I think it's important that we have this exchange and that we have this debate. And to me, it just proves how mature the network is, because we're no longer talking about changing the consensus rules. We're no longer talking about changing the block size. No one talks about changing the limit of 21 million. We're talking about mempool policies, right? We're talking about in the grand scheme a minor detail on how nodes interact with each other, what rules they have and whatnot. But I think it's a very elevated conversation if you look at the big picture.
I never thought about it that way, but it's so obvious to think about where the conversation is, what does the conversation mean, and how different it is from 2017. If 2017 or 16, they really talked about those block size, which is such a core thing of Bitcoin, which is very, very crucial. And now we talk about like op return, and talking about that I had two people currently on where we just talked about that, and many others that we briefly talked about that, but I made 2 episodes that focused solely on that issue. And my main takeaway right now is that it's a good thing that we make people aware that Bitcoin Core is not the only thing. That you can actually choose what implementation you run. And I then thought of like, maybe in the future, if it is more like in Austria, we have now 5 political parties. Maybe it's a similar system where we have 3, 4, 5 major implementations, and they fight for being number one with like, I don't know, 25, 26% of the share that they have. Is that something that you might think is like coming true, that we have many implementations and they're almost like political parties fighting for the right one?
Yeah, I didn't see it through a political lens, but I talked about this on some podcast where, and this was before the whole op return debate. I saw it as a big danger for the whole network that we just have this one software stack. And imagine a bug is introduced into the software. No one notices it, and it's a huge bug, right? It's an inflation bug or something. We had inflation bugs in the past. But imagine an inflation bug is introduced, and with just one software, the running on all the nodes, all nodes would say, yes, this is a valid block. But if you have multiple implementations, you have at least some nodes saying, no, this is not a valid block, ideally, right? If they don't have introduced this bug. Of course, if they all have the same inflation bug, but it's likely that they will not all say, okay, this is a valid block. And then, of course, this means there's a hard fork, but then the reaction of the network will be pretty quick and everyone will move to the chain that doesn't have the bug on it.
That's an interesting, I've never looked at that the way that even not just from like a malicious standpoint, just from like a human standpoint of like introducing a bug into the system, the fault rate of like, if the biggest implementation only has, let's say 25%, and then there are 4 other ones that are popular that have like, I don't know, 15 and 10 and 12 and 5 and whatever, how we have to come somehow to 100. In that situation, all of a sudden, a bug is no longer that bad.
It changes the complete game of what a bug means. Because let's play through what happens in a world where we have just one software stack of the client. Let's say an inflation bug is introduced, and someone creates an extra Bitcoin or steals something, or imagine actually exploits the bug. How the network doesn't automatically recognize this as a bug. It mines new blocks, and then you would have to roll back the chain. Like what Ethereum did with the DAO hack. They rolled back the whole chain. They halted the chain it was still a consensus decision, but it's still, the network still lost trust and everything, and it was a huge mess. But imagine you had just a few clients. It could be 1% of the nodes. When this bug happens, they say, no, this is not a valid block, and some miners also run this software stack and also mine this chain then. Then as soon as people wake up and switch their nodes to the only software where the bug isn't, the network will self-heal. You don't need to have this huge, hitting the brakes and stopping the network to kind of fix this. It self-heals. And you don't need a majority. You need even if it's theoretically, if it's even one node that, you need one miner and you need one node essentially to fork the chain into a chain where this bug doesn't work.
So we basically already have that right now. I mean, Nods is
a fork. So if it's a bug that's been older than the fork, then no. That's why I think ideally we would have a software that's written from scratch that purely implements the consensus rules with a completely new software stack, which is kind of hard to do. And I think that's why everyone is avoiding it. But ideally, we would have that. We would have a completely independent software that runs on their own, ideally a different programming language. So there's no possibility, because the software right now is in C++. So if there's a bug in the C compiler, or a backdoor in the C compiler, you would have the same issue, and the core end nodes would suffer from this eventually.
Oh, so like we would need something completely new, and it being just basically run by like theoretically by one, but we should have like maybe 1%.
Yeah, it can be a small group. I mean, the percentage doesn't matter. That's what I mean, right? If a critical mass is running it will be an added layer of security to the network. I mean, we kind of have that, because I think don't quote me on this, because I'm not 100% sure, but I think some miners already run their own software. They don't really run the standard core. They run their own thing. So there's also that the miner wouldn't mine from a block they themselves deem illegal.
Yeah.
But the normal non-mining nodes, I'm not aware that this stack exists.
Interesting. But there's an interesting thought on core versus nodes. I'm so surprised how emotional it is.
Yeah, like that doesn't surprise me, because no matter how relevant the conversation is, the emotions are always constant. Right? You're just elevating the level of sophistication of the problem, right? But I think that's a result of civilization in general. Like the problems you have to deal with in your daily life, like you're angry about them and you're like having an emotional debate about them, they're at such a high level compared to a caveman who doesn't even know where he will get his next cup of water or something, right? It's
so we basically haven't developed emotionally.
Oh, I think we have. It's just that the emotions are the constant thing, right? Because imagine you're content with the basic needs you have. Like you get a meal and you get water and you have a place to sleep. Like that's enough for you, probably, objectively.
Yeah.
But imagine also your emotions would be perfectly content with that state. There would be no podcasts. There would be nothing. We wouldn't have civilization, or we would regress back to a state where we have nothing more than these basic needs.
Because we crave more than we need.
Yeah, and that's unique to the human spirit. Like every other animal is just happy with the basic needs being met, essentially. But humans are never happy.
Is that also true with rats?
In a way, they've been engineered to be quite different from humans in their whole demeanor and their character. They're made to be more submissive to narratives and to authority. And yeah, there's a whole chapter about how the rats evolved and what the humans did to them, what ultimately caused their downfall. But I don't want to spoil that. You'd have to read the book to figure that out. But yeah, coming back to the whole human spirit, I think that's our greatest strength, actually, to have a heated debate about someone else would call completely unnecessary and stupid, and like, why are you even discussing this thing? It doesn't matter.
It actually brought my last episode I did on core versus knots was from someone that ran knots way before the opportunity even came on. And he said, like, I don't know why the knots people are so vocal about that, because it really, I even asked him this specific question because he was so like, oh, this opportunity, it doesn't matter for me. I asked him the question, if core and knots would have been exactly the same thing, only right now there was this opportune thing coming up, and he's like, I wouldn't change it to knots. I would stay with core. He just had a lot of problems in the past already with core that made him switch previously then to knots.
Yeah.
But now, of course, there's the CP topic coming up and the emotional debate. It's quite interesting for me to observe. And I had that in the beginning of the debate. I did not really look deep in that, but I already had people in the comment section screaming about like, oh, can you make a video about it? Can you make a video about it? And I'm like, okay, who can I invite to this topic? And then I made it, and I'm like, oh, it's fascinating, but I don't know why it's so fascinating. I think it's just the emotional debate.
Like I'm a free speech absolutionist. Like I think communications of any kind, no matter how ethically abhorrent it is, we shouldn't have a centralized authority telling someone that these are not legal bytes, right? Because how do you decide that this byte stream is illegal and this byte stream is not? You cannot do it without a centralized authority. Like you can have some rules in place that you try to, like this op return thing, you can say, okay, 80 bytes, that's it. Does that satisfy your moral standard or not? Like that's again an individual decision. Does it satisfy some government's legal interpretation? That's another discussion, right? But to me, at the end, it's all just bytes on a network, and the moral thing happens at the point where a person puts those bytes there, and at the point where a person reads those bytes from the network. If I don't install an ordinal software on my computer, I won't see JPEGs on the chain, right? So I already do this with some intent, and then I can have some consequences morally or legally. But if I just have bytes, like in the matrix, I see the chain, like there's nothing to see there.
That's an interesting argument. And I'm 100% with you. And it's super interesting because relating back to free speech, people are even complaining sometimes of like, oh, why are you having him on? And I'm like, oh, because I find it interesting.
Yeah.
But I didn't agree with this one thing he said. Yeah, like, okay, then skip that one thing. Or maybe you learn something if you listen.
I think it's hard. And I think the internet, I wouldn't say caused this, but made it visible that being able to self-censor, like censor what you consume, censor what you are watching or listening to or reading to, that's an ability someone has to learn. And if you don't learn this ability at some point in your life, then you will have an issue, because all the information, if you're a TikTok scroller, you will be bombarded with information and you have no internal filter. And then this impacts you on an emotional level, of course, if you don't have this internal filter. But you also consume a lot of things you didn't consciously want to consume. And then you will look for third parties to say, hey, please censor what I see. Please be my information nanny and only show me cute guinea pigs on my reels and not whatever, No, I don't want to see political debate on my stream. Please only show me cute rats or whatever.
I have this amazing example because I trained my YouTube short algorithm to only give me comedy. And now whenever I think like I need a good laugh, I go to YouTube Shorts.
Okay, interesting.
And go there. I was like, oh, fun. Like there's like 90% is like comedy, stand-up comedy, small skits, like it's just like fun observations. And it's so cool. So you can self-select, just like if you scroll through the algorithm, like it doesn't matter, all algorithms work like that. YouTube works like that on the podcast videos, on the shorts. TikTok works like that. Twitter works like that. If you see a video and you want more of those videos, like, comment, share it, like do all those things.
Or just spend more time on the video. I think that's also like pay attention to it.
Exactly. Spend as much time as possible there.
Yeah.
And whatever platform, they will serve you only this. Like you can have very different feeds on two different devices on the same platform. Like very different.
You have a comedy, and then it's back again like TV channels actually. Like you have your comedy channel and you have your political debate and you have your Bitcoin channel.
Yeah, Twitter is kind of political and Bitcoin. Like it's both kind of.
No, but I mean, if you have different accounts on the same platform and you train the algorithm to your different thing, that's again like a TV channel, but curated to what they think is you.
Yes.
But that's again the whole decentralization ethos, that you can have multiple identities. I think that's very important.
And it's interesting because, for example, I watch YouTube different how I watch Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And Netflix would paint a very different picture of who am I to what YouTube would picture me, and Twitter like completely different again. I never thought about how we have different identities depending on what platform we sign on.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's a side topic. I have one question which was in my mind when I was driving with the train here.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think rats? Maybe you even discussed it in the book. I haven't read it yet till now. How will rats look back at the Fiat history? If rats learn or teach history, how will they look back at Fiat, and how will they describe this thing we had once, where someone else could print something?
They don't, because they live in their own perverted version that is eerily similar to our Fiat system. Because in the book, that's a whole thing we need to open now. But
you don't need to spoil anything.
It's difficult, I don't want to give away the whole thing. But I can maybe explain it in something that I already published on X a few months ago, which was a teaser. So we had this whole ETFs and MicroStrategy, and they're all custodying with Coinbase.
Yeah.
So in the book, in the past, before there were even rats, this was hacked. So the whole collateral from MSTR, Coinbase, it's not explicitly named, of course, but in concept, that's what happened. Everyone put their precious base layer money not into their own custody, but they gave it to the custodians of old wealth to safeguard it for them. And this got hacked. And what did the hackers do? You have to imagine that if you do a hack at this scale, you cannot really spend it. Right? Because you have a wallet now with 5 million Bitcoins in it. You cannot really spend it because, every exchange will block you or whatever. It's very hard to do. You can do it, but it's very hard to do in practice. Similar to this North Korean hack a few...
of Bybit.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They tried, and then like a small percentage of that was even usable, I think. So what did the hackers do? They sent it to the Voyager probes. And that way it was inaccessible to humanity, because now you have to physically build a spaceship and catch up with the Voyager probes, which already left the solar system, to get back this money. And in the book, this is what kicked off the whole space race, the third space race. And the downstream effect was that the rats were created, and that this whole plot developed from that moment on, that the funds were stolen and sent almost a light year away, to be only found by those who do the ultimate proof of work.
How do you actually look at Coinbase? Because it is something we've discussed probably like at least 10 times on the podcast.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, all those coins are, because people always say, oh, isn't it a risk that there are so many coins with Seyr? I'm like, yeah, but Coinbase is a lot more than say that.
Like it's not they don't disclose how they do their custody, right? So they do security by obscurity. Yeah, to me it's a huge risk. That's why I wrote a literal science fiction about this risk and how it could play out. Because then you have this huge chunk of money that someone has, and if at some point in time someone has this and controls this, you have again something similar to a fiat system. Right? If you control, let's say Bitcoin becomes our money. We have no fiat money anymore. If a single entity has the keys to half the money in the world, you have again something like a fiat system. You have again a Cantillon effect, because the central authority again is responsible for distributing the money. Like you have a central bank built on the time chain essentially, and that's why the rats actually live not that different from us. They have their own poverty issues, but it's like an elevated poverty. You have all your material needs are met. Like we talked before, like everything you have, even if you have no money, you will not starve, you will not freeze. There are options, but you have no freedom. You have no freedom in movement. You have no freedom of expression. You're basically a slave to your biology and nothing more.
Doesn't sound too good also.
Yeah, but that's at least how I pictured this future.
I'm so excited to read it. I will show it for people again. Like read this. I'm really. This is how we actually met. I read something from you on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yeah.
And then we just like.
What was it? What was it that made you interesting?
I don't know. It's been so long. Like I think it's been 1.5 years now.
Yeah.
Or like something like that. That we recorded the first one. But it was something on Twitter. I think it was like a thread or like a smaller article on that, like something like that. And I was like, oh shit! Like let's talk to this guy. But it's super interesting. I had one more thing. Oh yeah, like basically then is the whole book, if you take it as that, also a major advertisement for self-custody? If you have the origin story of that whole thing with the basically all coins are at one party, and then this whole thing went in the direction that it went, is then like, oh, okay, like we want to avoid that Bitcoin kind of becomes bank coin, and like most Bitcoin are held with a custodian. We want to have self-custody, run our nodes and stuff like that.
It's very subtle. The book, you will not find the word Bitcoin in this book even a single time. You will find many other words that will sound familiar to anyone who knows, who is in this bubble. Let's open a random page and see if we find something. For instance, the spaceships. There are two huge spaceships in the story. One is called the USS Halfini, and the other is called the USS Nakamoto.
I love that. Halfini.
So it's full of references. It's basically a love letter to this whole community, in a way. But it also tries to appeal to a casual science fiction reader who has no idea what this whole thing is, right? I wanted it to be also accessible for young adults to read, or for people who didn't even think about money at all, or how money influences how legal systems work and how that all ties together. So it could also be a work that brings someone into the whole Bitcoin world. If self-custody is then something they will learn from it, yeah, sure. I mean, at the end, it is a huge warning sign for everyone who knows to not leave their coins on centralized exchanges, all that stuff.
I love that.
At least not all of it.
I just thought if you see that, like if you see that on the shelf somewhere, you will never think about Bitcoin.
But if you know about it,
then you constantly think about
it. Then you will immediately recognize it.
Yeah.
It's like what do you call it? A dog whistle.
It's
full of dog whistles.
Dog whistles. That is interesting. That's been amazing. We have one question that I asked each and every one of my returning guests, actually, and I'm very interested in that. Mm-hmm. And the question is, what have you learned since our last episodes outside of Bitcoin?
Outside of Bitcoin? I learned that it's a lot more work to write a book than I initially thought.
I hear that from everyone that wrote a book.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
But I heard it also, but I'm like, nah, I now have AI tools that help me do the research. I'm an IT guy. I know how to build, because you need to also, if you do it seriously, you need to build this whole pipeline that creates the PDF, you know. This whole publishing is this whole different rabbit hole. That was an interesting journey to actually like the whole thing besides the writing itself, what goes into the research. Also, I thought like it's now end of September, and I thought it's finished in December, and then I had a group of amateur and professional editors to go through it. Got lots of feedback. So like 50% of it is new since this, where I thought it's done.
It was like 9 months ago.
Yeah. So, it's something I knew from other fields, like from IT. Like your program is also 20% finished when you think you're done, right? But it's interesting to rediscover and be ignorant again about this writing thing that I found very humbling, to be honest.
I set out to do something. I was like, from the things that I learned on the podcast, I want to write a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I never said I will publish a book because I don't want to put that burden on myself. If there ever comes a book, then there's a book coming. But I don't think it will. I'm not an author. I'm also not good with writing. Mm-hmm. I'm not very skilled with it. But from that experience alone, just like sitting down and writing on your own, I was like, oh, how do I actually think about that? It changed something. Like I think it really makes you a better thinker, a better speaker, and this only from like a few pages that I write, and I write not science fiction, which is what I heard a whole nother level. Like science fiction is like 10x harder than just like writing about why Bitcoin, for example, which is an actual thing. But yeah, it's what I hear from all authors, but I want to believe it, but I still have to try.
But you have to try to really believe it.
I guess so. They have to put the proof of work in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Actually, one more thing that just came in mind with the whole philosophy of Bitcoin, like how it will change the human mind if we then actually have to put proof of work in everything.
Yeah.
That we first had that Fiat debt system, but then all of a sudden, like for everything also collateralized, we have to put in actual proof of work to get some things.
Yeah.
How will it change things?
It will be a completely different philosophy. Almost like a new religion of some sorts, because religion is also more or less a moral framework and a framework for how people interact with each other. Like if you drill it down to the core principles, that's what religions or belief systems do. They create a way to think and interact with each other. Like all religions have that. And it's always some connection with money, interestingly. Like all major religions have some money connection, and also tell the people how they should conduct their monetary things, right? The whole Bitcoin ethos is like it takes influence from all the major religions, I think, and create something completely new in this way that you have to do the proof of work first. There is no debt in this system, and also the lesson that every time you do the debt, you fall on your face, essentially. Like that's a whole new lesson that people in the fiat world, they don't learn it. You fail with your company, you go bankrupt, you start a new company. You repeat this. And at some point, your company becomes so big that you go into politics, and then this whole game repeats.
Then you have to bring Donald Trump golden buttons.
Exactly. This never stops, right? Until you die, you have to do a bigger scam. Like if you look at some scam artists in our sphere, right? They never stop. They always move to some bigger thing until they end up in jail or disappear. But you know, the system forces you to get bigger stakes, bigger debt every time. And in the core Bitcoin ethos, you cannot do that. Once you burn your collateral, it's done. It's gone. There is no second bailout.
I like that because also then people only do things that they are set out to do. Like they only, I mean, with company, we have that a little bit. If you found a company in Austria, you have to put up at least 5,000 euros, which is not a whole lot, but at least you lose something, which is an interesting thought of like, okay, whatever you do, you have to put some collateral there. And you know that if you fail, this will be lost forever and it won't be yours anymore. And so you think twice about it. And this changes a lot. Like this, you can literally go in every single category of what humans do, and you're like, oh yeah, that changes.
Yeah. But you live on you try to live on a Bitcoin standard, right? You must have these thoughts like a lot of times, right? Do I really need this Labubu or what's it called? Or do I stack some sets?
I have it here. I had iPhone 14, I think 14 Pro. I scaled down to iPhone 11.
Okay.
Because the iPhone 14 Pro was rented. Terrible decision. And I paid 70 euros or 60 euros in total for it, with like the plan or like how's it called, mobile plan plus the phone. And then I switched my mobile plan to one that is 9 euros per month. It's absolutely enough for me. It's still actually too much for me, like the 9 euro plan, but like
you cannot really go cheaper than that.
You cannot really go cheaper, even though you don't.
I had the same journey, by the way.
and the iPhone cost me 200 euros. And so after 4 months, I made profits on that. And the funny thing is, I scale down things in my life, even though my net worth grows, which is a very different thing to most people. As their net worth grows, their fancy things grow.
Yeah, and lifestyle inflation.
Exactly. Yeah. It's crazy for me to like this is just a very small example of that. But I try to do it with every single thing. And I'm now debating since about a year if I should like change it out, because the battery life sometimes gets bad. I also right now only have 50%, even though I didn't do a lot today. And then I saw a lot of people, for example, debating, oh, should I get the new iPhone 17? And I was like, that's a terrible decision. Why don't you get the 16E? It's half the price. It's still a very new iPhone, and it can do everything. It's just not as fancy as the new ones. And it has a better, the 16E has a better battery life than, for example, the 15 Plus Pro has. And it's a small phone. It's smaller than this actually one. And sorry for my small rant, but it's like I earn Bitcoin, so I'm forced to sell it to pay for fiat bills. And this really makes me think twice every single month. And a year ago, I wouldn't have sold any Bitcoin, but now as my income is mostly in Bitcoin directly, and then most of my bills are still in fiat. I pay 1 or 2 freelancers in Bitcoin, but that's it. All other bills are, except like I'm at Ratoshi, sometimes on the Vienna meet I'm going, I'm paying in Das Delicious a burger with Satoshis, but outside of that, everything's in fiat. It really makes you think. It really is like, oh, should I sell this now? Like, if October is coming now, like, should I sell my Bitcoin? Or like exchange it for goods and services in that point?
Maybe the cycle is over, you know. Nobody knows.
You think that?
It's a thought I have for a long time. Like, it could have well be that, like in Euro, so far, we didn't do a new all-time high since January, actually. So no one knows what the price will do, right? That's the ultimate thing. So, but I wanted to get back really quick to your iPhone thing, because I'm very similar. I'm also a cheap person, always was. How I trick myself is ask my question, okay, I really want this thing, right? But then I think, like, is this a business decision, right? If it helps my business, if I can monetize it, then I go all out. Then I buy the best thing ever, because I know if this, incurs opportunity costs in my business at any point, like in your case, a better studio, a better camera, whatever, like, yes, spend the money, because you will get better returns than any investment, even better returns than Bitcoin. If you spend it on your business and do that. I think you had this experience as well. But for private stuff, like, use a broken screen, who cares?
It's the same. For example, this here at that time where I bought it, now there's a new one out. You can actually nicely compare them. At the time, this one was the best microphone. It's the one that Joe Rogan and all the podcasters use. And I was like, I have a podcast. Like, I need a great microphone, and I just bought it. And I was like, oh, that was more than my phone, way more actually.
Yeah, but it has a return on investment, and your TikTok reels have no return on investment.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, a great side effect: if your phone has a broken screen, you spend less time on it, which makes you money. So, like,
because you always have to plaster your fingers. Or,
a broken screen might be a good business decision. We have an routine, as you might know, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question: if you met Satoshi, what question would you ask him? Yeah.
So I have this wide theory, and this theory will sound familiar because many people in the space have it, that Satoshi will be called at some point the second coming of Jesus Christ. So Jesus was also active only for 3 years, and then was inactive for 2,000 years. So I hope I will get the opportunity to meet Satoshi. but it will have to be in 2000 years. I hope I'm still around then with all the biotechnology we discussed. But I probably won't recognize him because he has moved on to other things. So yeah, that's my answer. I wouldn't know what to ask the person, you know, because one side is the spirit and one side is the person. I wouldn't know what to ask because all he wanted to share with us, he shared. And he obviously didn't want to dox himself. He didn't want to reveal who his family is, stuff like that. So what else should I ask a person who said, okay, I'm going to reveal that about me and that's it, and now I'm moving on to other things? I would respect that.
I've never thought about that question, but it's such an obvious one, actually. Do you have any speculation on like what he moved on to? Like obviously we have no clue.
If we stay within that narrative, he's now inactive for 2000 years and might appear again when we need him.
I love that. It was really cool, Ratoshi. Before I let you go, where can people find the book? Where can people find yourself?
Yeah, I'm mostly active on X under the handle Ratoshi21. That's where you see my shit posts and my blog posts. There's also links to the book. It's released on Amazon as a Kindle version, but you can also order these beautiful prints, which have also extra Easter eggs you will not see in the digital version. And yeah, if someone wants a PDF for coins, we can maybe talk about it. So I'm also working on a decentralized edition. Maybe I do an audiobook next. I'm already working on a second part of the book, so it's a trilogy. Yeah, but as I said, find me in the show notes. And yeah, Robin, nice to have me for the second time. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, as with every single guest, I always put at least one contact information in the description down below. It's usually like guest contact, and then there's like a link that you should follow. Probably will make it the Twitter account, maybe also the Amazon. Let's see. So yeah, thank you so much, Ratoshi, for being on, and also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.
This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.